Okay, let's turn to the chloroplast, right? So we know that the chloroplast performs photosynthesis, right? It will absorb light energy through the use of pigment molecules such as chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is a green pigment. This is what gives leaves and the photosynthetic parts of plants that green color. On top of that, the chloroplast also will contain certain enzymes and molecules that also aid in either the absorption of light energy or the conversion of light energy to chemical energy and the eventual production of sugar molecules. Chloroplasts are going to be found in leaves and any other green parts of the plant or algae, right? And so anything that you see in a plant that's green, think it's got chloroplasts in it, in the cells, and that part can perform photosynthesis. In general, the chloroplast is actually one part of a group of plant organelles that are called plastids. Plastids are typically categorized based on the fact that they can store materials for the cell. So chloroplasts not only doing photosynthesis, but they can store starch, for example, maybe some lipids inside as well. If we were to take a look at the chloroplast structure, so again, maybe let's draw one. Okay, so remember a chloroplast also has two membranes, right? So it's got smooth outer membrane, and then its inner membrane is also smooth. This is unlike the mitochondria. And technically, the chloroplast actually has three sets of membranes. The third set of membranes, these are green because they contain the chlorophyll pigments embedded in the membrane, and they're organized like little poker chips. So you've got, again, little membrane pitas. They're all stacked on top of each other. Each one of the little poker chips I'm drawing here is called a thylakoid. And the thylakoid is made out of thylakoid membrane, and the thylakoids can be stacked. The stacks of the thylakoid membranes are called grana, if it's plural, or granum, if it's singular. Right? And these are, again, made out of that thylakoid membrane. One of these guys is called a thylakoid. All right, and thylakoid membranes can be interconnected, so you can have the membranes connecting to each other. Now, the space, let's say, in between the inner membrane and the thylakoid membrane, that space is filled with a fluid that's called the stroma. This is also where the ribosomes hang out and where you have that circular DNA that the chloroplast has hanging out as well. Right, so you've got your thylakoids. These are membranous sacs that are stacked to form the grana. And then you've got the stroma, that internal fluid. And so you can see that here again in the cartoon diagram, as well as parts of the chloroplast here, an actual chloroplast, using an electron microscope. Okay. The last organelle that we're going to include in this category is the peroxisome. Now the peroxisome, it is very different from the mitochondria and the chloroplast. It only has one membrane. We don't think it came from the endosymbiont theory. It doesn't have DNA, it doesn't have ribosomes. Instead, it's more like a lysosome or a vacuole. So it's a specialized metabolic compartment. It only has a single membrane around it, and it has two primary functions that we're going to discuss. So one of them is the production of hydrogen peroxide. So that's kind of where peroxisome gets its name. So first of all, cells will go through thousands of chemical reactions every minute of every day. And some of those chemical reactions produce unwanted toxic components like free radicals, which can damage a cell. And so free radicals can be countered, for example, by antioxidants. They always, say in terms of your diet, you should be rich in antioxidants. You can get them from blueberries, for example. They help to purify, to get rid of some of those free radicals. Your peroxisome helps with that. So it takes those toxins and it actually converts them to hydrogen peroxide. Now, you wouldn't think that hydrogen peroxide is very good for the cell, right? What do we use it at home for? As a disinfectant to kill bacteria. So no, clearly it's not benign to the cell. It's actually toxic. But the peroxisome doesn't stop there. It'll take the hydrogen peroxide and then convert it to water. Water, of course, being very benign and good for the cell. And so peroxisomes function in detoxification for the cell as well. And then lastly, and probably the reason why we include a peroxisome in this category of organelles, energy processing, is that the peroxisome can begin fatty acid breakdown. So when you start to lose weight, for example, and you're trying to burn off all the excess fat that's stored in your body, you're going to have to break apart a fat molecule, right? And if we review a fat molecule, remember, has the glycerol, and that's attached to 3 fatty acids. Now, fatty acids are those hydrocarbon components, and remember, hydrocarbons can store a lot of energy. Fatty acids simply are a whole string of carbons with hydrogens attached, much like what you see here. So in order to extract energy from the fat, the peroxisome will begin to break down those fat molecules, separating out the glycerol from the fatty acids, and then taking the fatty acids and actually breaking them apart. And when the peroxisome does this, it chunks up those fatty acid tails into 2 carbon components, one there and one there, for example. And then those 2 carbon components can go off into the mitochondria as part of the process of cellular respiration to help make ATP. And this whole process, then, the digestion of those fatty acids, is called beta oxidation. And we'll cover that one more time when we get into metabolism.